Todd Wolfe with Made by Wolfe, and today I want to walk you through the making of this wooden spoon and just talk about the process with you. This is one of the first spoons that I've made that actually has a depression in it to hold liquid. Most of the spoons that I have done have actually been spatulas that are used for scraping bowls and for mixing, and this one is actually made for ladling and conveying liquid as well as mixing. This is a spoon that is made out of cherry. The blank that we'll be milling up here needs to be about 1 3/4 inches thick and 2 5/8 inches wide, and it has to be at least 12.5 inches long. Check out my Instagram page. I post most days at this point, and it's a fun way to keep up in between videos, so I encourage you to check that out also. First thing we have to do is we have to lay out the piece, and I have templates that I have used for my spatulas, and I'm actually using those so I could have a very similar handle profile on this piece that I do on my wooden spatulas. There are 2 templates. One of those templates goes onto the face and the other goes onto the side. And by cutting those out on the bandsaw, it actually gives us the finished profile we need to start the sanding process. So once we get that traced out onto the blank, it's over to the bandsaw. I use a 1/2 inch blade most of the time. It helps a lot with the long straight cuts, but it is a little bit tight on the end cuts, which are a much tighter radius, and so sometimes I have to make a relief cut or 2 in order to get that in there. I try to make it so that when I cut off the top flat piece, that I leave that piece entirely intact, because you can see here I then double stick it back to the spoon blank that is just done in one profile, and then that gives me my profile to follow for the second set of cuts, which are on the face of the wood. While we're here, let me just encourage you to hit that like button and that subscribe button, and if you want to know about more videos, make sure that the notification bell gets hit as well. Once those 2 are cut out, I can then pop that off, and you have the finished profile that you need off of the bandsaw, and it's ready to go over to the pneumatic sander. First thing I do on the pneumatic sander is I simply keep it square. I keep the spoon square, and I clean up all of the bandsaw marks, and I make sure it is nice and smooth in a square profile. And I do that first. Then I rotate it to a 45-degree angle. You can see I've done that here. And I work on the handle, and I make the handle essentially an octagon. So I kind of make it a fat octagon. The 45s that I sand on don't end up being as wide as the original 4 sides that were contoured off of the bandsaw. And then once that handle is shaped to that octagon shape, I then work on the back side of the spoon, and I round that off until it is nice and smooth and contoured. At that point, I go over to the flap sander, and the flap sander is a great addition to the spoon making process that really cuts down on the hand sanding that I need to do. It really doesn't do any profiling, but it really does a nice job of getting things close enough that I really don't need to do much hand sanding at all other than finish hand sanding. So. And it's on over to the bench where I have the Arbortech Ball Gouge chucked up in their power carving unit, and we are going to then create the divot in the spoon face so that it will actually carry liquid, unlike the spatulas, which have a flat face. Once I have that as close as possible to the shape that I want, I then go through 2 other products that the Arbortech people have put out. One of them is a Mini Turbo sander, and this is a sander that is a direct drive right off the shaft of the power carving unit, and it is fairly aggressive, and you can do your finish shaping with this, and that works really well for that. And then I switch out to a product that they have called the Contour Sander, and the Contour Sander actually provides a random orbital action on it. This is it here, and it doesn't do so much shaping, but it does a great job at the finished sanding that needs to happen on the inside of that spoon bowl. So at that point we're down to hand sanding, and the hand sanding, I usually take that up because this is an oil finish. I will take that up to 320, and in that, somewhere after I've got it up to 180, I actually wet down the surface completely, and I do that twice. I wet it down, let it dry, sand it back, wet it down, let it dry, and cut it back again. And it's that second cut back that I do that we are at 320 grit. The finish I use is called Waco Butcher Block finish. I have started using this fairly recently, but I like it just fine. There are lots of other good finishes, homemade finishes with mineral oil and beeswax and other things, and so you could put any of those. It just needs to be a food safe finish because you're using it with food. I usually do 2 or 3 coats on it, do a slight sand back in between. Sometimes I will do a wet sanding and get some 600 or 800 grit sandpaper and put oil onto the spoon and then actually sand it with the oil on it. That does a really nice job of bringing up a good luster. And there you have it, the finished wooden spoon. There's another video on the channel called The Making of a Wooden Spoon, which is a concept video which talks about the making of the spoon and the tree that it came from, and encourages through that process generosity from us to the world around us. I encourage you to check that out. Again, this is Todd Wolfe with Made by Wolfe, encouraging you to get out there into your space and to make something today.